One, two, one, two.
Tumaliza selfie and then
Oh, kuongea?
tumaliza kupiga selfie condition.
Oh, saa nilikuwa tu naangalia background. One, two, one, two. Saa, mko ready? Hey guys, welcome to another new episode. I'm your host Myles Gicheru. Welcome to the Myles Show. So remember guys to like, subscribe and share. Today we're going to be talking about one of the few disorders that people have mostly gone through, especially during the COVID-19 period. And today we're going to be talking about OCD. I'm going to tell you what OCD means, some of the causes, what to do if you find out that you have OCD, and how to treat OCD. So I'll start off by explaining what OCD means. First and foremost, OCD means obsessive compulsive disorder, and that it has two parts. Yes, it has the obsessions, and also it has the compulsion. That's what makes it. That's what defines what OCD is. So OCD features a pattern of unwanted thoughts and fears. That is obsession. Yeah, the unwanted pattern of thoughts and fears that lead you to do repetitive behavior. That is compulsions. Something that you do it on a regular. For example, you can say that washing your hands. Maybe if you feel like maybe if you greet someone and you want to use a sanitizer, you want to wash your hands. That's like a compulsion, a repetitive behavior that you do. Okay. This obsession and compulsion interfere with daily activities and cause significant distress. So if you find that you are doing something and it continues to interfere with their daily lives, okay? An example of an OCD we can look at it maybe cleanliness, especially during the time we had COVID-19. You see, during COVID, the ministry used to advise us to wash our hands on a regular. But you see, someone with OCD will have unwanted thoughts that the COVID is going to get them. And so they can keep on having a repetitive action of washing their hands so much that they end up hurting their hands. So that's an example of an OCD and how it can affect you as an individual. We may also look at now what are the types of OCD that are there. And I'd like to take you through the obsession often have themes to them, such as a good example of obsession is fear of contamination or dirt, where maybe you're afraid of getting dirty, or even, for example, during the COVID-19, you can find yourself that you are very particular of maybe trying to contact COVID. So that's an example. Doubting and having difficulty tolerating uncertainty. You see, when you have something that like you're not sure of something, and then you find yourself like doubting and having difficulty in trying to convince yourself that there's nothing, that's going to affect you. That's also another type of, you can see, of OCD. Needing things orderly and systematic. If you find yourself that you're the type of person that you do not want, like you have a specific place to put your stuff, okay? You have specific places to put your stuff. And if something is not there, if something is moved even by a small, just moved dog or two, you find yourself like you feel uneasy. That's an example. Also, aggressive or horrific thoughts about losing control and harming yourself or others. yeah, if you find yourself maybe constantly thinking or having horrific ideas about hurting yourself or others, that's also an example. We can also see that unwanted thoughts, including aggression or sexual or religious subjects. And also, we can also look at also another theme, but this one we can define them with compulsions, and these are washing and cleaning. Maybe you are the type of person to keep on washing your hands, washing the house. You see, maybe if someone pours a little drink of soda, you find yourself washing the whole house. Okay, that's an example of an OCD. Checking, counting, orderliness. Like if you have a certain order, if you're the type of person, like let's say for example, you go to an M-Pesa and maybe, or even a bank for example, and maybe you have a big sum of money, and then like you keep on counting the cash to confirm that you have the specific amount that you need, and already you have already checked on it. Or rather, if you're the type of person who, when you leave the house, you keep on double checking the door. You see, let's say like you've locked, but you go a little few steps, and then like, okay, have I really locked the door? And then you go and confirm, and you can do this maybe like 2 to 3 times before you leave completely. And also following a strict routine. There's some people who like have a specific strict routine they have to follow. If they don't follow that, their day is ruined. They start panicking. That's also an example. And also, last but not least, it's demanding reassurance. There are those people who like, for example, if you're maybe like dating, and maybe they like they are teachers' pets, for example. Let's first and foremost look at dating. And they're the type of people that they like reassurance about that you love them. Like every time they're gonna ask you, oh, do you love me? Do you love me? Or do you think I'm cute? Do you think I'm this? So that's also an example, okay? And for people who maybe, they really focus so much on what the teachers say. For example, you can talk about someone who wants the teacher keeps on telling them, you're a good student, you're a good student. That's also an example of the types of OCDs that those are the examples that you can see of them, okay? Now I want to take you through causes of OCD, and I have a few of them here, but it's so broad. There are so many causes that can make you have OCD, and honestly, right now, the exact cause is not completely understood, but they might be associated with the following: changes in the chemistry and functioning of brain, okay? Family history. If there's someone in your family who has OCD, in a way, it can cause also. Environmental factors such as certain infections are said to trigger OCD, okay? Let's say, for example, during this COVID period, you can find yourself that how the media had portrayed OCD, not OCD, how the media had portrayed COVID, how it is, you'll find so many people fearing COVID-19 so much that, it can cause someone to have OCD, whereby someone keeps on cleaning 24/7, and that's an example of environmental cause. And also stressful events in life, yes, that also can, okay? Other mental illness such as depression or anxiety, especially anxiety, because you can see that OCD, when something is not going a specific way that you want, you start getting panics. So if maybe you have depression, or maybe especially anxiety, you keep on panicking, so it can lead to OCD so much, because you'll have like a repetitive thing to do to try to clear the uncertainty that you have. Yeah? And last but not least, substance or alcohol abuse, that also can cause OCD. If you abuse drugs too much, like you can't live with it, it can cause OCD by other ways, okay? So we look at some of the symptoms of OCD that you can check out, or even if you can notice among your friends, on yourself, or rather even on your child or your spouse. These are some of the symptoms that you can try and see and try to judge from them. First and foremost, we can say fear of being contaminated by touching objects others have touched, okay? For example, let's say using the stairs, yeah? The rail of the stairs, it's so many people usually touch it, okay? You can imagine during the COVID-19 period whereby we were being told to keep our hands to ourselves, especially not to touch things. You as an individual who has OCD, imagine you're walking and then by mistake you touch the rail. And let's say for that example, where you have touched, maybe there was no water and maybe you don't have sanitizer. You can imagine how that person can panic. So fear of contamination by touching objects others have touched, that's an example of something to look out for, a symptom. Also doubts that you have locked the door or turned off the stove. Yes, like I was telling you, if you have doubts of locking the door, turning off the stove, and also using the, what's it called? This thing, iron, yeah? The iron, maybe you have not switched it off, that's also a thing. And intense stress when objects aren't orderly or facing a certain way. Exactly, like if you have, if let's say for example myself, when let's say maybe if I had OCD, I'm used to the camera being right in front of me the way it is right now. Let's say just one day the producer decides and says, okay, today we are going to use maybe it's going to be at the back, If I had OCD, I'll be like, whoa, like I'll be very uneasy during the shoot. So that's also something you can check. Intense stress when objects aren't orderly or facing a certain way. Or maybe if you have things, maybe in your room, if you have ways it's called what, you organize your room, yeah? And then let's say someone just comes in, maybe your sister or your brother, and then maybe takes something, and then in the evening, maybe when you come back, you don't find it, you're gonna have a panic because you know where you left it, and then you can't find it, okay? So those are some of the symptoms you can check. Images of driving your car into a crowd of people. That's also something else you can check, you can see. Unpleasant sexual images. Avoidance of situations that can trigger obsessions, such as shaking hands. There's some people who are not handshakers. They actually cannot shake your hands. Especially this period whereby we had COVID, you can imagine how, like right now, you try and shake someone's hand. Someone with an OCD won't allow you to shake their hand. They'll be very uneasy. And if you do, the next minute they'll be reaching out for their sanitizer to wash their hand, to clean their hands. Also, you can also see that, last but not least, you can also see that someone with some of the symptoms is someone who wants maybe to keep on getting assurance, especially if you're in a relationship. Someone keeps on asking you, Myles, do you love me? So and so and so and so. Do you think I'm pretty? So and so and so and so. Do you think I'm this and this? So someone who keeps on asking you that question, don't be mad about your partner. Just kind of think about it, and maybe he or she has OCD, and try to just give them reassurance, and then you just be there for them, okay? You can also look at other examples we can see is also hand washing until your skin becomes raw. Yeah, there's some people who literally wash their hands till their hands become raw. Checking doors repeatedly to make sure they are locked, like I had said. Checking the stove, like I had said before. Counting in certain pattern, and then also silently repeating some words, phrases, and even prayer. Like someone maybe can say one thing and then says another thing, repeats the same thing again and again, okay? Arranging your canned goods to face the same way. Yeah, those are some of the symptoms or some of the signs you can see, and then you can maybe judge that someone has an OCD. Most even you yourself, you can see that OCD, like you can look at these symptoms and then you're like, okay, you take, and then you can judge yourself that you have OCD, but it's not wrong to have an OCD, and it does not mean that you are sick. It's just a disorder that can be caused by anything, because we are human beings, we experience things differently. The world is open and we can meet so many different situations, and some of these things, they just come because I for myself call them natural, because it's not that you yourself, you wanted maybe, for example, to get an OCD. It just happened because of circumstances. So yeah, don't be alarmed, but you can control an OCD. Okay, and now this one's bring me to the next point which I want to talk about, and it's the most common question I've actually been asked me personally by many people, and the question is, can OCD go away? And with this, I can say that OCD symptoms generally, come here and go. It comes and goes. It doesn't necessarily have to be. You can't always be an OCD 24/7. It can sometimes come and go. And because of this, many individuals diagnosed with OCD may suspect that their OCD comes and goes, even goes away, only to return, okay? Sometimes people might be like, okay, it's been a minute since I experienced OCD, and then they think like, I'm finally cured. And then maybe 2 years later, 3 months later, 5 years, 10 years later, you get a trigger, you get an attack or an OCD attack, let's say, you see. So this, what I'm trying to say is that you cannot, OCD cannot go away completely, okay? But you can control it. Once, okay, if you have OCD, it's kind of with you, okay? And so you just have to learn to live with this, okay? So this is why it is important to understand fully why your OCD symptoms are occurring and how you can intervene to stop the progress of your OCD symptoms. You can control OCD symptoms by understanding your triggers and irrational thoughts that automatically come about. So if you end up understanding yourself as an individual and what triggers you to have OCD, you can now control that. For example, let's say you don't like shaking hands because of germs. So what do? You try and train yourself, it's okay, to shake people's hands, but you can wash your hands and it will be okay. And with this, I can give an example of, you see, once maybe you have shake someone's hand, you can just try and relax. Don't assume that they are sick. Don't assume that they are carrying the whole bacteria. You can just relax yourself. Just give yourself a few minutes to adjust to the situation, and then maybe now you can wash your hands, or you can use the sanitizer. Just try and convince yourself that it's okay to greet someone, even though you might want to wash your hands. Just greet someone. Don't panic so much about it, okay? So we can also look at how to stop an OCD attack, okay? And here we can, some of the things I can say is that psychotherapy, okay? Psychotherapy through exposure and response prevention is considered the highest standard of treating OCD, where a person can expose themselves to the OCD triggers and learn to resist the urge to complete their compulsive behavior. The purpose of this is to gradually lessen obsession-related anxiety, okay? So, just to the same example about washing your hands, okay? You can, once you've greeted someone, actually you should just expose yourself so much. You can still work with your sanitizer, or you can still have your sanitizer with you, but have this notion of knowing that you'll be okay. Even if you greet someone's hand, you'll be okay. Try and fight that urge. I'm not saying that don't wash your hands. Please continue washing your hands. It's very important to keep hygienic safe. But you can, depending with what your OCD is, yeah, try and control that that compulsion of doing something, of washing something. If a child has spilled food on their clothes, don't be too quick to change the kid. Just just try and let the kid enjoy themselves, let the kid play, and then once they're done playing, now you can wash it. Not that they just notify themselves 1 minute and then they're okay, come in, let's go and wash the clothes. No, just take your time, okay? Treatment centers also, it's a good way of trying to stop an OCD attack. With treatment centers, this is a place whereby you learn how to control your OCD. And these facilities have an outpatient program and group therapy. It's also very important, if you know that you have OCD, to go for a group therapy. You be with people who experience the same thing with you. And with this, you can be able to, help each other in dealing with this. And also it will help you to realize that you're not abnormal, that it's normal, that there are so many people who experience OCD. So even some of the famous people that are there, celebrities, Hollywood celebrities that are there, some of them have also said that, they experience OCD. So it's normal to have an OCD, but these treatment centers, the good thing, they have an outpatient, so you can just go for a session, and then you try and learn how to control it, and then, you go home and continue with your day. It doesn't even take so much time. The time it takes, it's according to you. If you want like a 20-minute session, it's okay. Self-help strategies. Remember, guys, it's very important when it comes to any psychological issue that you may be going through, you start with yourself, okay? Start helping yourself as an individual. For example, stress can increase OCD. Take some steps to reduce stress levels. This may include relaxation and self-care techniques such as getting enough sleep and taking long nature walks, okay? Try and control, if you maybe, for example, like that example I've given you, if stress is the trigger, try and control that stress, okay? And you'll be okay. So start helping yourself. And also, we can also talk about, lastly, write down your obsessive thoughts, okay? It's quite important that you have a self-journal or, like a diary for yourself, whereby you can write down, some of these obsessive thoughts that you may go through. If you write them down on your smartphone, even not necessarily even a book, on your smartphone, just when you feel you are about to obsess, write down that thought. It will help you see what your recurring thoughts are. And then when you read them over and over, it's like you're expressing yourself through maybe paper, and it's also like you're expressing yourself maybe through writing on your phone. You'll find yourself like it will lose power in self. That obsessive thinking, it will just fade away by itself. If you do it today, if you do it tomorrow, and then you'll be like, oh, by the time you are reaching maybe a certain period, you're like, oh, by the way, like I haven't had like a certain thought for some time. Even when it comes to you, you won't even think about it. Like you'll feel like, oh, okay, it's like that. With time it will change, okay? So guys, that's what we have today about OCD. And I hope everyone has learned something. And if you have a friend who maybe has any of the symptoms that I've talked about, you can share with them and let them see how they can control the OCD that they experience. And I'll still say it again that having an OCD does not make you abnormal. You are very normal. You actually, let's just say, you're just someone who's very, very clean, because actually most people assume that OCD is all about cleanliness, but we have seen also sometimes it's also in thought. You can have some types of thinking that maybe like harming others. You see, there are those types of bad OCDs that you can get. So thank you guys for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe and comment on the video and what you think about OCD. And guys, remember to always keep safe. Have a good day. Enjoy.